Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green,
I'm your host, Martin Tui.
and we are pair rankers. And this week we are ranking our favorite sequels. Noel, talk to me, brother.
We're stupid, very dumb, very stupid people. We're in the YouTube. If the people are seeing us on YouTube, we're very new to the YouTube realm. This is not our first rodeo of pair rankers
Yeah, it's like
at all,
episode 15 or something like that.
and we're doing sequels.
Yeah.
Sequels.
Yeah, sometimes the most obvious ones are the ones that pass you by. Because like a lot of times when we're doing rankers, I'll say to you, "Hey, dude, what we doing for rankers this week?" And you go, "Give me a day or give me an hour."
And I bounce off Sheila and stuff like that. She goes, it'd be cool. It'd be cool. And we try and think of off the cuff stuff.
Yeah, something sounds super original.
But like sequels, just do sequels. Like just fucking do sequels.
Yeah, because
you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Because the other day, I was like, the other day I was saying to you, I was like, maybe we should do something simple, like Batman's or Terminator, or sequels. You know what I mean?
No. It was not our proudest, nor our least proud moment. It just sits right there in the middle. Nice and comfortable.
Yeah. So, like, what did you like? Was your list easy to make, or
very? I think before I put pen to paper, I think I had like when I went to find a pen, I think I had 3. You know what I mean? Like you just think of just films just flood in like unbelievably, undeniably. So, and especially like that the sequels are even better than the first one, and the first one was good. You know what I mean? Like sequels that just surpassed all your expectations. So a few of them came in. Then I started looking at some lists, and if anything, like it was like what to make an honorable mention, what to put in the 5. It's difficult because of the abundance of choice, as opposed to kind of really having to like look for something, to fit inside of whatever it is we're talking about that week. What about you?
Yeah, I'm nearly changing one of mine as we speak.
There you go. Like,
just popped in my head. Yeah, no, like I knew two of them at least off the top of my head for sure, and then after that I just kind of built out. Like normally, the very first one I think of nearly always ends up being number one on my list. Like, you know what I mean?
The idea here is never to overthink it anyway. We always say that, as in go with your gut.
Saying about my life for most of my life.
But go with your gut, and it opens the debate, and But yeah, do you want to get this show on the road?
I just want to say to people, if you're wondering why we're extra glistening, it's like super hot here in Ireland right now.
It's just unbearable.
Yeah, and you can see how incredibly pale both of us are. So it's just horrible.
Sun's not our friend.
Yeah, and especially being indoors in this kind of weather is.
You can't turn on a fan because we're recording, and it's just there's no winners here, folks.
The only time you'd ever have a fan in the room with you. Original joke.
Top 5 zingers.
Watch out. All right, cool. Let's get this fucking show on the road, motherfucker. Watch number 5. Let's do this. People are fed up of hearing our world class humor because they just want to hear what we're talking about. Aliens, never seen it.
The first film was so iconic, and the second film, we always talk about the fact that they think, go bigger is better, and it's so rarely. This film subverted you into thinking it was much bigger. In terms of what you actually saw, it wasn't all that much bigger, but it was the action. They just upped everything, but the story, everything about this film was just amazing. It was one of the most iconic action films, sci-fi, horror, all of the above for me when I was a kid. I must have watched it. I've seen it 20 times in my life, and I've enjoyed it every single one of them. It's one of my favorite films, in fact. So it was absolutely easy. There wasn't one of the ones that came to me straight away. Now I was looking through some lists and I seen it, and I was like, I'm surprised I didn't think of that one, but that definitely has to make the list. Aliens was just superb. That showdown, get away from her, you bitch. Game over, man, game over. So even just for the
they mostly come at night, mostly.
Yeah, they mostly come at night, mostly. And just the tension of the film and the scale of it, the action of it. There's nothing about this film that I don't love.
Yeah,
so definitely a top 5.
It's awesome as well, and the first movie as well being so good, it was so hard to follow it up. Like it's very early that you get a sequel to such a classic movie to be so different, but yet being so good as well. So it's one of the few times where you'd see the original and the sequel, both of them getting classic status for completely different reasons. And use the antagonist in completely different ways. And it's such a smart movie at the same time being more action oriented. I can understand.
like icon status achieved there and then, you know.
Yeah, Sigourney Weaver, like, you know what I mean? Is that in
Sigourney
Ripley?
Weaver,
Like,
of course.
because in the first movie, she didn't even have a first name, as far as I know. She's just Ripley.
Did she not? She's just Ripley the entire way. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so like, you know, Aliens definitely, like, fucking hell, like one of the best sequels of all time for sure. But for me, my number 5 is gonna have to be. I want to make a good instinct because I just changed my list. Right, I'm gonna go for
see, I threw away my list because
Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Oh, superb! It was definitely I flirted with. Spoiler alert: it's not on my list, but it's definitely one I flirted. It's my favorite Marvel film.
Yeah,
I just thought if Marvel made a Die Hard.
Yeah,
it's just superb action.
It's
just superb action.
It's so well done. It's like it's pretty much a fucking top level espionage movie disguised as a superhero movie. Like
exactly.
Yeah, it's so like it's like, and obviously like one of the best things about it is the action scenes actually seem very real world. And what like obviously the impression that this movie left on Marvel and Disney, that the Russos pretty much replaced Joss Whedon in taking over the Avengers movies, and they also directed Captain America: Civil War. And you'd see now that like obviously the success of this film laid the kind of path for the Russos and them having their own production company and shit like that, because they came from Community to do this movie, and to have that kind of jump and to do it so successfully. And Captain America 1 First Avenger, I think it's one of the most underrated movies in the MCU. It's such a solid movie, and to elevate that story into a modern age and to tell a completely different modern story, and how espionage now is so much blurrier than back then. That like back then Captain America came from a world of very much good and evil, the Allies and the Nazis, and to see now like everything's in shades of grey. And how, like, you know, I think he said in one of the lines where back in my day you had to commit the crime before you got arrested for it or some shit like that, like, you know. So
it had everything, didn't it? And I always like the kind of slightly grounded superheroes. Like, don't get me wrong, they could run into an army base and take absolutely everybody out, but they were not like they couldn't pick up the army base and throw it into space or something. You know, it's
you can't. Interesting.
Yeah, you learn something new about me every day.
I just learn one of your weaknesses.
Goes on the list. Could not take down army base single-handedly.
Just like
you're walking right into my trap.
It's like, Noel, just get that money back at Vinnie. He's just like, no, he's just been hiding in the army base for the past 2 weeks. I was just like, I don't know what.
Waiting for my moment.
Yeah.
I think that leads us quite naturally into my number 4.
Yeah,
and it's not going to surprise you. It is the one and the only Batman: Dark Knight.
A good choice.
It's just I don't believe in the expression "spare to burn out to fade away," because I always think that's just like you know, it deflates a tragedy when you lost Heath Ledger. But my God,
also my number 4.
Also your number 4.
Yeah, because that was literally my late edition.
That was your late edition. That's the one that came to you. Is that the one that came to you when we were talking?
Literally just there now. Winter Soldier was originally my number 4, and Dark Knight replaced something else on the list, and I'll say it at the end. So pretty much, yeah. So what happened was, right there now, I just remember Dark Knight, and I'm thinking Dark Knight's a better movie than Winter Soldier. So Winter Soldier had to get pushed to number 5, and Dark Knight number 4.
Yeah. With all due respect, an absolutely excellent film. But Dark Knight, Batman's introduced. We had the Batman Begins that built up the Batman. How the Batman
I'm over here
work in a slightly kind of more realistic kind of sense.
Now I'm over here.
But this was just a superb movie. One of the most superb antagonists.
Swear to me.
Ever committed to film, and the action was just off the scale completely. The scope of it and the whole Joker's ethos was just so expertly executed. Dog chasing a car, wouldn't know what to do with it if I caught it, you know.
Oh man, like Heath Ledger, man, like obviously him passing away was such a tragedy, but like to be able to capture that role before he died, weren't we so lucky? Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like
so lucky.
Yeah, like to catch an actor that was at that time in his life that was so willing to experiment with what he was doing with himself and his roles, and to catch that role that suited him so well at his peak of his powers, or maybe he's just at the edge of the peak of his powers, because I would have fucking loved to see what he would have done in the next 10 years. Because he was hitting a stride in at that moment that very few actors get, and to make that performance so iconic, so forever lasting, but not only because he passed away, because a lot of people say because he passed away, that's why it's so iconic. It's not, because even if he was still around today, that role would have lived in the memory forevermore. And I know it's been like, it's kind of like it has that weird kind of thing like with The Crow as well, where it has this kind of cult status because of the events, the real world events around it. But like, I just think his portrayal of the Joker is nothing I've ever seen before.
No,
It was so like scary, so manic, so intelligent, so frenzied, but at the same time, it was just like, it was kind of like, oh, it's exactly what Alfred says. Michael Caine says some men just want to watch the world burn,
exactly.
and you cannot negotiate with that. You
No,
cannot negotiate with someone that's an anarchist, that's a proper chaotic person that just wants to see the aftermath and destruction caused by his actions, and you just want to see any monetary gain because they keep burns like pretty much fucking millions and millions of dollars in the movie, because he's trying to show the people that's not power, that's their way of controlling you. If you want to be truly an outlaw, if you want to be truly anarchistic, that you can't attach yourself with money or monetary goals, that you have to go out here and lay siege or lay waste to the fucking current structures of systems and organizations and all that. And that's what the Joker was. He was all about tearing down Gotham from within, and by turning
well,
people
what man
on themselves.
is when you just take away the veneer of the dignity and respect and
Yeah,
society and all of that kind of stuff, and it was just
yeah, it's just the
bewitching to
yeah,
actually look at it. Yeah,
to have him do that and to have Christian Bale be like so good at Batman as well. Because I apart from I'm over here, that voice,
yeah.
which is a bit unnecessary. I just think like the two of them are perfect to have. Like very rarely will you have someone like high level as Christian Bale playing Batman at the same time you have Heath Ledger putting in one of the most iconic performances of all time as Joker. Like everybody saw Jack Nicholson's Joker, we thought that would never be surpassed, and now everyone looks at Heath Ledger and we know that will never be surpassed,
Yeah,
because it was just such a once in a lifetime opportunity to have that kind of person in that kind of time to do that kind of performance.
Michael
And
Caine famously like stumbled over one of these lines in the Joker. Heath Ledger had to like just when he takes over the cocktail
the
party
dinner,
kind of thing,
yeah,
and he comes in full character, and Michael Caine has no idea what to make of it.
yeah,
And
exactly.
he's supposed to open his mouth and say something, but nothing comes out. Heath Ledger, without missing a step, just keeps going, just keeps going,
Yeah,
because that was the
man.
take. That was going to be the take.
Yeah,
So he just keeps going. The exploding hospital,
yeah.
the charge is not going off like they should. So he stops and ad libs that iconic. They clap when he's sitting in the cell and he
Yeah,
starts
yeah,
clapping out to them. All of that completely ad lib. Oh my god, chills. There's
yeah,
never
man.
been anything as good. And this film is my number 4. Like, I mean, full respect to everyone, Nolan, Bale, everyone. But my
Yeah,
God, Ledger's the reason that this
yeah. Oh
is on my
man,
list.
because Batman Begins like pretty much revolutionized and reinvigorated the Batman franchise and Batman as a whole, because what we came off was Batman and Robin
Yeah,
with you know what I mean. So like to have that movie, the way it reinvigorated this franchise in terms of motion pictures, and then to have the sequel be like exponentially better than the first movie, and the first movie is
oh yeah,
incredibly fucking good.
yeah.
Like Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul and Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow are two of the fucking best villains in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, everyone can hold their head high. It was like
Yeah,
it's actually just saying how high the standard actually was. That
yeah,
it
and
surpassed it. It's a compliment. Like it
yeah,
was just an incredible
exactly.
film. Yeah,
It's very rare that we see a sequel be that good after the first film was so good, and to blow it out of water. And it was actually so good that even though Dark Knight Rises is actually a really good film, but in comparison, a lot of people deride it. Like so it,
that's it. It was a
yeah,
victim, and that's the thing. That the standard now was a whole new standard,
yeah,
and then you're like, no, you didn't quite make it there, and it
yeah.
wasn't from lack of trying, and you know.
Because initially he wanted Heath Ledger to be coming back in the third movie, and that was
Well, of
why he
course,
wanted.
he survives.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Batman
So
takes him in alive, and it could have been a
yeah,
whole thing, but yeah, it just
like
wasn't
a
to be.
Hannibal Lecter type thing. I think that's what
Yeah,
he's gonna do.
exactly.
Like
Yeah, even if he's the guy in jail that he visits because there's
yeah,
some sort of copycat shit, whatever it was, I'm sure they were going to explore options. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, but just a tour de force performance by him.
yeah. So what's your number 3, motherfucker? We get out Gotham City for a while.
Well, definitely getting out Gotham.
Ba-dum, bum, ba-dum,
Just like
ba-dum, bum,
the
ba-dum.
most watched film I think in my entire life. I'm talking, of
Ba-ba-do,
course, Terminator 2, which
do,
is both of our numbers.
It's fucking weird.
Our backers both changed it.
Ba-ba-do,
It was that music.
ba-do,
Favorite score. It's always that.
now I know
Every,
why you cry, but know that I
is
never
something,
can.
yeah, something I can never do or something like that. Just like, again, it's got quotes, it's got just that dead-eye
The
performance.
fact that we haven't covered Terminator is ridiculous. We should cover that straight after Kai July, I think. The Terminator franchise.
Just the Terminator franchise.
Yeah.
But it just took the ante up a whole new level. It introduces technologies and ways of approaching film that were like, if they were either in their infancy or didn't exist.
And we're so lucky to have James Cameron. He's so psychotic about making movies.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
but there was, see how many Terminators they've made that you realize that this wasn't just, this was lightning in a bottle. It just was. It was. Robert Patrick was so good as the T-1000. He was the everyman. But he was, this such an interesting concept, a liquid metal, unstoppable killing machine that sure you can put it down for a second or two.
T-1000.
You can basically do no damage to it whatsoever. You can only keep running and it never stops. And oh god, everything
never gonna stop.
The acting, Edward Furlong was incredible in it. Everybody was incredible in this film. It's one of the best action films ever made, and it is, like, there could be the top of my list. It's just in here again. This is something I struggled with, but Terminator 2 is the soundtrack of my childhood. It's the film of my childhood, and it was like there. You hadn't seen anything like that when you seen Terminator 2 for the first time.
Oh, 100%. Blew my
fucking no frame of reference.
Oh, blew my mind.
Absolutely blew my mind.
We should definitely give a shout out to Ed Furlong, though. He's like, his knee on the mend now. He's gone through rehab. He's like, clean for 4 years or some shit.
4 years, man. That's not nothing.
Yeah, keep on fighting the good fight, John Connor.
Yeah. You are always going to be John Connor. Like, there was 7 of them, and still it was always you, Eddie.
It's a pity though he had those troubles, because like he suited the role so perfectly, and I would have loved to have seen Ed Furlong grow into the role instead of like a new iteration of John Connor.
Like the Salvation actually be Edward Furlong, how much
has anyone ever played John Connor for more than one Terminator?
Well, the guy who played the John Connor in the flashback in the first Terminator, is he the same guy that played him in the flash, or is John Connor in the first one? I don't think he is.
Be a flash forward.
Sorry. For the I'm not sure if he's in the first one. I know he's in the second one, just for that second where he's standing over the wall
with the scar
and shit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm going to take a stab at no. But Terminator 2 is one of the best films ever made. That one.
See, the problem with Terminator, I think it got lost in the Arnold Schwarzenegger of it all. And it forgot that John Connor was the story and not the Terminator. The Connors themselves, like the first movie, the Terminator is the villain, Sarah Connor is the story. So the second movie, the Terminator's protagonist, and in the T-1000 is the antagonist, but John Connor is the story. Sarah Connor is the story. I think that's what they lost as the movies went along, because Arnold Schwarzenegger became the story.
Yes.
And like, even though like he's the main character, but the heart of the story is the Connors.
No, it is, of course. And that's the human element, and it's the vulnerable element.
Yeah, and I think that's like where the sequence lacked, because Linda Hamilton was a beast in Terminator 1. She was fucking awesome. She played off Kyle Reese, who was played by Michael Biehn, and like he was fucking excellent, like in that movie. And like, and in part 2, we have her playing off Ed Furlong and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And like the mother-son element between Ed Furlong and Linda Hamilton is beautifully done, and how
much she changed as well. Like, she toughened up, and and him thinking he had the crazy mother, and her turning out to be right. You're right. It is a story of the Connors.
Yeah,
they got caught up in their kind of fever dream of robots and scale. And again, it lost its way, but not in Terminator 2. It didn't.
Yeah, no, Terminator 2 and Terminator 1 are like 2 of the best science fiction movies of all time. Like part 1 is pure like horror, like, and part 2
is the part 1. First one is more horror, actually more horrifying.
Yeah,
it does. It has that more like
it's a serial killer. He's a serial killer. Like, he's literally killing in a pattern, like a serial killer. Like, you know what I mean? He's killing Sarah Connors, and the way they're doing it is fucking brilliantly done. That literally there's this dude out there and he's just killing Sarah Connors.
Just bust the door open.
Yes.
I love the fact that he had the red laser light on one of the guns, even though all he can see is red. And he's a robot, so I reckon steady arm was going to be really like the issue. But
is the targeting system not built into him?
And the targeting system itself is so I thought the laser light was a funny old take.
I'll
take
a plasma gun. Like, dude, what are you talking about?
You can't do that wrong. I just love those movies, man. I love that movie. And Terminator 2 raised the bar.
Yeah, we're singing from the same hymn sheet tonight, motherfucker.
Yeah, we are actually. That's 2 in a row.
All right, cool. Hit me with your rhythm stick, motherfucker. What you got next?
The Godfather.
Oh, good choice, bad image.
It's just, yeah, sorry, the image looked
What's the film called?
The Godfather Part 2 is
Dodge Ravener.
Yeah, Dodge Ravener Part 2.
Never seen the first one.
It was, like the shoes that you have to fill. Like in the film, in both the character and also the actor, and having Don Corleone win an Oscar, 2 people win an Oscar for playing one character was so, you had
Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro.
Marlon Brando, and you had Robert De Niro, and so Robert De Niro playing a young Don Corleone, and Michael Corleone's kind of ascension to power, and the fact that the first film is essentially a perfect film.
I didn't like Godfather. It insisted on itself.
What are you talking about? You don't like the Godfather. It's basically a perfect movie, isn't it? It insisted on itself. but this film had everything. It was perfect. It just it was like just took off from that first film. Lost nothing. Nothing. Let you down in no way, shape, or form. Yeah, just a perfect movie.
And the fact that it just ended with 2 as well, and it just didn't
exactly.
go for the third one.
That was it.
And the third movie is actually good. It's just the other 2 movies are literally 10 out of 10 movies.
Yeah, and that's it.
Like if the third one was the first one of any other franchise, it'd be considered a world-class movie. It's just because of what came before it. It's like we talked about earlier, victim of its own success. Like, how do you follow Godfather 1 and 2? How do you follow? Like, how do you even follow Part 1? You're so lucky to get Part 2 right. You know what I mean? So. Like it's very rare that we get to see a franchise built around a gangster, the gangster genre, like, or gangster movies. You never see like a Goodfellas Part 2, Casino Part 2, Tale in the Bronx Part 2. You know what I mean? It is very like unique unto itself that you get 3 world-class fucking gangster movies. People consider it the one about Part 3. It's just not as good as Part 1 and 2. It's still like a 7 or 8 out of 10 movie. It just has some weaknesses in terms of the acting. I think that's because we didn't Winona Ryder pull out or something, and Sofia Coppola, who's actually like a highly acclaimed director now, she pretty much had to kind of jump in the last second to replace her or something like that. I think it was, or something like that. But I just think that like Godfather 2 is a great fucking choice, because Godfather 1 is so good, and to be able to follow it up and probably even
follow it all,
and to maybe even better it as well.
Better, it's just incredible. Just an incredible accomplishment, and one of the best films ever. So, and even though I'm a Terminator guy and that's what I grew up with and stuff, I just have to, for the cinema of it, I would have to say Godfather. So what's your number 2? What tops Terminator 2 for Vinny?
For me, like I went all about feels in this one, so it was all about what made my insides sing, and that was like, you already had it on your list, and of course going to appear on my list, and that's Aliens.
Yeah.
Like the reasons, like I won't dwell on this for too long because we've already kind of covered it, but the reasons I picked Aliens is because Alien 1 I think is actually a better movie. Like, or Alien is just a better movie, I think, in terms of, like, we spoke about this in our Alien franchise episode. You want to check it out on Spotify. It's also on YouTube, iTunes, whatever. Try to get better plugging ourselves. But Aliens is like, it's got everything you want from a sequel. It's bigger, it's better, and it's still as good. But Alien itself is so classic, and it's such a classy movie. And in terms of how the creature hunts him down throughout the ship, and it's so claustrophobic and so isolated, it's such a perfect movie for me. It's like, it's a 10 out of 10 movie. And for me, Aliens is maybe like a 9 out of 10 movie, because some of the cheesiness is insane, but it's so quotable. The action's incredible. The extended edition is fucking flawless almost. And it just has so many memorable characters and so many memorable performances, like is it Janet Goldstein or Michael Biehn, Sigourney Weaver, Paul Reiser, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton, and then you had the little girl that played Newt as well. Like, so like everything about that movie is fucking iconic. The first movie for me is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's probably in my top 4, top 5 in terms of horror of all time. It's one of the movies that made me fall in love with horror, science fiction. It's one of my favorite genres, horror, science fiction, and Aliens is definitely up there with that for me. And it's like, as we said earlier on, it's like what you said with Godfather. How do you top the first movie? And I'm not sure if this topped the first movie, but it's almost,
it's its own movie.
Yeah, you can't compare them in the same sense. You can't compare
this is very much so its own movie. Yeah, Godfather still tells kind of the same story. You could
same genre.
Compare them. So same genre, and this one kind of, they're two individual movies under the same umbrella, under the same guise. So you can't judge them separately, but it's still just a perfect return to form.
Yeah, it's like what James Cameron did with the Terminator franchise. He turned one of the greatest science fiction horrors of all time into one of the greatest science fiction action movies of all time. And like he did that with Alien and Aliens. That like he's seen it and go, how can I make this bigger and badder and better? And he fucking did that in a lot of ways. And even though I still class Alien as the better movie, that I think Aliens is one of the greatest sequels of all time. And of course, it had to be in my top 5 list, and I had to rank it highly because it's one of my favorite science fiction movies of all
It's
time.
fair. Yeah, you're not going to get any arguments from me. Superb film, made my list too. Okay, so
What's
you
your
said
numero uno, your
numero
big cheese,
I kind of going to rub
top
your line and
dog.
say that I went with the feels on this one. I waited for this movie. Now it wasn't a long wait as far as waits for sequels can go, but it was a wait I felt every single day of the Two Towers.
Oh my god.
Just such a good. The first movie ends with them walking over the hill, you know, they're trying to get to Mount Doom, blah blah blah. And then the second film, you have the Battle of Helm's Deep, you have just everything. It was just better than the Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh man, it's like one of the best movies of all time for me.
It was everything. It's just
that's why it's my number
magic.
one.
Actually, oh yes.
Yeah.
Wow, is that three out of 5
in the
same place?
Same
four
order.
4 out of 5 in totality. Yeah, that's not bad. Two Towers, man. It's just it had everything. It was just it did everything a little bit better. Now, to be fair, like it didn't have to lay the groundwork.
Yeah,
like the first one did.
Fellowship is a pure origin story.
Oh, it's a pure origin story, exactly. And there's a lot to get through and a lot to get into. But this just had everything. It was just let's get into it.
And when you see the extended editions of these movies as well, it makes them a whole new fucking beast. Like it's a whole new animal. Like even Fellowship of the Ring is so much better. Return of the King is so much better when you watch the extended editions. And Two Towers is like, it was awesome in the theatrical release, but it's one of the best fucking movies of all time.
Yeah, one of the best battle scenes of all time.
Yeah, Helm's Deep is incredible.
Helm's Deep is incredible. I put it up against anything.
I mean the parts when the elves arrive. Like
yeah.
Once upon a time, men and elves fall alongside one another, or something like that, or some shit. Isn't it like with some Tolkien head out there right now screaming at me?
I was there 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, just do push him in.
But man, it's just a perfect movie. But again, it actually makes me feel giddy. It makes me feel actual magic. It gives me butterflies.
I went back and watched these on it recently, man. I watched them over 2 days, The Hobbits in one day and Lord of the Rings the next day. And man, I love to do that, man. It's one of the best things, one of the best
really
worlds.
I'm due a Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I haven't watched in years.
It's one of the best worlds to get lost in. It's like Tolkien was such a genius, and his lore is like everything, and everyone aims for it. Like I'm not a fantasy author, but I know some top level fantasy authors like Bengali and other people, like I think it's Brandon Sanderson. Everybody wants to kind of capture like what Tolkien did and create a world that is so layered and is so in depth and it has so much lineage. And I think like the legacy he's left and the amount of people he's impacted, that you still have authors today.
Oh my God, he's the Mac Daddy. Like he is
over 100 years when he started conceiving this. Over 100 years it is now, and you still have people top level fantasy.
He is to fantasy what Kanye West thinks he is to music.
But it's you know what I mean. It's just one of those things that the books are obviously their own thing, and you got a lot of hardliners that don't love the movies because the changes they made. But for me, the movies are so fucking flawless that like when you have like the immenseness and the epicness of the battle scenes and the way they capture them is something completely different. Like when the fucking Oliphants start fucking walking through, man, that's one of the worst, most ill-fated battle charges of all time from the Rohirrim. I just want to say to the King of Rohan's, like, if you see a bunch of elephants, maybe the best thing would not be to do a standing charge with your horses. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's like, you know what you do? Maybe you let them come into the middle. You open up your formations. You let them come into the middle, and maybe you can try to overwhelm them and attack their legs and shit. But no, they're just like, Rohirrim! They just like fucking run straight at them. Can you imagine being the men from the south and they're just looking at this like, I'm going to kill some amount of horse lords today. Like a fucking ridiculous amount of horse lords.
Nameless tertiary inventory.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, cause imagine being on this, like on the back of an elephant and you just seen like this fucking mad charge coming at you and just like, all right, I'm going to kill at least 200 horses in the next 20 seconds. Like it didn't really.
Somebody just going, are they actually going to? No, there's something. There's no.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they are.
Yeah.
Did we fire arrows at them? No,
Yeah.
I think the elephant's just stepping on them. Like, I think we're good.
Like it's such a pointless charge. Like that's always annoyed me about Return of the King. Like,
but man, actually, just
Two Towers though, man.
Just magic. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just so perfect. It was a perfect movie.
Man.
And I just, and it gives me all of the, like a lot of these things, like Terminator 2 gives me feels, like him going into the liquid, whatever that molten kind of steel was
lava.
at the end.
Lava.
Was it lava? It was, I thought,
molten steel.
Molten steel, I think, whatever. The steel, it was a steel works. And I get the feel, but this film has kind of like almost everything on my list combined. Like, it has that kind of like darkness, and has the light side, and it has action, and it kind of sucks me in, and it kind of reminds me of my childhood a bit. And I don't know, it just has a little bit of everything for me. It's all encapsulated. I'm so certain about this as my number one pick, and sometimes I'm a little bit like, shoot from the hip, see how you feel when you're doing it. But this one, I knew. I was like, well, it's the Two Towers, obviously. The Two Towers.
That was the first.
And then it was like, I thought of Godfather, and I was like, Godfather is amazing, but still the Two Towers is number one. Like, it just is.
Yeah, like this is one of the first times when my list is nearly almost identical to the order I thought of them in. Like, you know what I mean? Because like usually my number one is the first one I think of. And then usually my list as I go along kind of changes. Like the second one I think of might not be my number two, whatever, but usually my number one is the first one I think of. And for me, this like the first three on my list was the exact order I thought of them in, was the Two Towers, Aliens, Terminator 2. Like, and then obviously it changed because of my late edition with Dark Knight. But apart from like, this is one of those lists that like it's extremely gut instinct. Like, you know what I mean? I know there's a few
as
things
it should be. You know, the whole idea was not to try and just tear down a rabbit hole where you overthink it. It should be where you are at the time, like a pub conversation. Yeah.
So before we get the fuck out of here, Noel, what's your honorable mention?
My honorable mention, it feels silly putting in the company of the Two Towers, but it was a great movie, and that was the 2004 Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man.
Just a great film. Just a lot of fun. Spider-Man, we had set him up, we'd done the origin story, and Spider-Man was a full fleshed out, like doing his thing hero, and they upped the ante. The battle with across city that culminates in the train. One of the best battles that you're likely to see. I think it's iconic. I think it still stands up in a lot of ways. Some of the special effects are a little bit iffy now, but that's just the way of the world, unfortunately. But it is
one of our very first episodes, Spider-Man 2.
It was our second, because we do Spider-Man, then Spider-Man 2 was the second thing we ever covered.
Before we were even called Darkseid, we just
before we called Darkseid,
Spider-Man Family Hour. So
Spider-Man Family Hour. And this was just I just remember leaving the cinema on a buzz. I just said, because this is before we were as spoiled as we are now.
Yeah.
Now we have end games and stuff. So now we have stuff coming out on like Disney streaming service that is just completely mind blowing. Yeah. And this was at the time, this was like the best superhero movie I'd ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. Like the standard bearer for a long time, Spider-Man 2.
It was for a long time. Maybe till 2008, maybe till The Dark Knight. So I think for me, it would own those couple of years, and I thought of it. Didn't quite make the list, but an absolutely spectacular must watch.
I just said X-Men 2 there. That could have easily been our one.
Could have easily been. You know what? And I didn't think of it. X-Men 2 was an awesome movie.
My honorable mention is a movie that when I seen it, I still hold it in very high regard, even though the CGI at times is not great. But I love the story, I love the aesthetic, I love the director, and I love the franchise, and that's Blade 2.
Oh, I loved Blade 2.
When I went to see that movie,
I hate vampire.
Yeah, I'm going to say like I was way underage when I went to see this movie. My brother snuck me in, and I was on the greatest days ever. Like, it's fucking awesome. I've never seen anything like this, and it was such a jump up in level from the first movie. It's far superior than the first movie, and I would have given anything to see Guillermo del Toro do a couple more Blade movies. I would have. Like, I love Hellboy, but I would have sacrificed that lamb so quickly to have seen Guillermo del Toro doing Blade 3. Like, I would love to see both of them. Why couldn't he just do both? Like, he's like, I want to do Hellboy. I'm like, cool, we wait. Just, you know what I mean? Like,
we'll wait so we can get a really, really, really good third Blade movie. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, and
like, imagine Guillermo del Toro talking about the king of vampires.
Yeah, you would have
original vampire.
Probably would have got a fourth Blade movie as well. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, the third one they killed in its crib.
Yeah,
you know, it just did. But the second Blade is an awesome movie, and it's the same. I don't think I could justify either of these two on the list. How iconic I think the list was, and we had so much overlap. We had that we obviously were on a very same page. We have two great films up here in the background behind us for those who can see us, but absolutely fantastic. They raised the game much better than the first. Did you?
Yeah, right in the eyeball. Like exactly. It raised the stakes in the first two movies, and both the first two movies were iconic. And we were something like, if you're a superhero fanboy like me and you are, that when we seen Blade 1 and Spider-Man 1, you're like, oh, I can't top this. And then you seen the sequels that clearly topped the first movie both times. That like it was just fucking awesome to see at that time, see the birth of the mainstream superhero movie, because Blade 2 and Blade 1 and Spider-Man 1 and 2 and the X-Men movies, they really were the forebears for the modern superhero movies, and they showed what you can really do with these movies. And without those, we wouldn't have an MCU, and we wouldn't have had like the later iterations of Batman and stuff like that, because we were seeing the real world viability of these movies, that they don't have to be a real campy, cheesy kind of like fucking tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, like what the later Batmans were trying to do, or overtly gothic in the way Tim Burton was trying to do, because that's a Tim Burton Batman. It's not it's not a DC iteration of Batman. So like it just showed you that these movies like Blade 2 and the Spider-Man 2 and X-Men 2 could easily be there on our list, that shows what superhero movies can do and how they're franchisable. And even though, unfortunately, in each one of those franchises, that the third movie was not as good as the first two movies.
No,
it is a shame, but I did give people the idea that superhero movies were bankable and they were franchisable. And Blade 2 for me is the exact way I want to see a Blade movie. I want to see it really dark and grimy, and I want to see the really vampiric side of vampires in the same way Guillermo del Toro went and expanded on with the Strigoi and the Strain. And I just love the whole aesthetic of it. I loved like Damaskinos and like the fucking blood pack and all this kind of shit. Like, so for me, like the way it built up, Blade 1 is a really solid action movie and I love it. Like, but Blade 2 to me is one of the best superhero movies still. And I thought it was a perfect follow up. But before we get the fuck out here, the one that was my number 5 on my list that I booted off, it was Mission Impossible 2. And just a quick little jabber about this was, I love the first one. I love spy movies. I love espionage, and I thought part 2 kicked up to a whole new level. It gave us this kind of entryway into Tom Cruise becoming an world class, action hero. That like he was pretty much like raising the stakes and raising the levels of what he was doing in stunts and action and the scale of these movies. And like Mission Impossible is one of the few franchises that is very like, there's maybe not a 1 week movie in it. Like there's weaker movies, but none of them are really bad movies. And part 1 and 3 are really, really good, even though they're probably weaker compared to 2, Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, all this kind of shit. But for me, I think the new tone of Mission Impossible and how big it was going to be as a franchise in terms of scope and scale were captured in part 2. And when I first see that movie, it blew my fucking mind. It's like, holy shit, is this what action movies are now? And like they really had a lot of influence in action movies around that time as well. So like that's why I made my list or initially, but then I thought of Dark Knight. Dark Knight was, I had to make my list somewhere.
Yeah, so. No, Dark Knight, exactly. Yeah, but it was definitely an honorable mention after an honorable mention.
Yeah, which I've done twice in a row now. I'll stop doing this. But you know,
we'll see. We'll play it by ear.
Yeah. All right, folks. There are favorite sequels. You have anything that you want to say, Noel?
I'd like to know if there's anyone watching. Please comment down below. Tell us what some of your favorite sequels were, and we'll get back to you and tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Why your opinion doesn't matter. Who asked you? And you'll be all like, you asked me. And I don't even remember asking you.
Yeah, I just want to know if we forgot something that was stupidly obvious. And
there has to be one.
Because I didn't Google anything here.
Yeah. I looked. I did look at a list or two. I think.
I literally wrote this list off the top of my head. It doesn't say it's one of the few lists that I ranked them in nearly the exact order that I thought of them. Because usually I know my first 1 and 2 because usually they're the first 2 I think of, especially number 1. But apart from that, I usually juggle. Because like, we always say with rankers is all about feels. Try to come up this list as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
Watch a video, watch a 15-minute video on YouTube or something if you want, or check up a few top 10 lists. But like pretty much zero research is kind of what we encourage. Yeah. So
ideally zero. That's true. Ideally zero. Just shoot.
Yeah, but sometimes you kind of don't want to feel that you're missing out something too obvious because
and it has happened. Sometimes you put up something like, there's no way I can't. How in the world did I not think of that?
Like the Matrix one or something for the bad franchises or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so like They're our favorite franchises, or sorry, favorite franchises. They're our favorite sequels. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel Tui.
And we are Pair Rankers. And see you next time, motherfuckers.
Subscribe.
Please. Oh, yeah, subscribe, hit like, notifications or whatever.
If they're on YouTube.
There.
Probably there.
Everywhere.
There.
Everywhere.
That's where I'm going to guess they are.
Peace.
Peace.